Republican incumbent Congressman Tom Reed seeking another term in the U.S. House of Representatives.
And the reason that we're running again, and I ask for people's support, is the job's not done.
His challenger, Democrat Tracy Matrano.
If people want to see this place not only survive, but thrive, just give me a chance.
It is a rematch of the election of 2018. The candidates facing off on the big issues affecting you, from COVID-19, the economy, police reform, and so much more. From your local election headquarters, this is the New York 23rd Congressional District Debate.
Good evening, everyone. From your local election headquarters, welcome to the 23rd Congressional Debate. I am your host and moderator, 18 News anchor Zach Wheeler. Here tonight, incumbent Republican Congressman Tom Reed and Democratic challenger Dr. Tracy Matrano. We welcome you both and thank you both for taking part in this debate. We are coming to you live from the WETM TV studios in Elmira. Our debate is airing right now on Nexstar television stations across the 23rd District, and we are also live streaming on Nexstar digital sites across the state of New York. So we welcome all of you that are watching and joining us tonight. Our questions tonight are coming from viewers throughout the entire district, along with questions from me around the major issues that are facing this nation at this time. And now for the rules of this debate. Candidates will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks, 1:30 to answer the main questions, 30 seconds for a rebuttal, and we will be using this bell to indicate your time is up. We set time limits tonight because you deserve to hear where the candidates stand on as many issues as possible. And we begin with opening remarks. Tom Reed Congressman Reed, you won the coin toss, and I believe Tracy Matrano, you will give opening remarks. 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, everyone, WETM, for hosting this debate this evening. I'm so glad that my wife, Vicki, is here, who grew up in Horseheads, and her children all went to Horseheads. Her family is here. And I'm very grateful for all of the people who are watching tonight all over this district. My son, Sam, also came. He's over in the green room. You know, my first memory of Elmira is significant. It was when I was 12 years old, growing up in Rochester, and it was the day I was confirmed. And as I walked out from our procession to get in my parents' car, it was raining in a way that I had never seen before, and probably actually haven't seen since. It was 1972. It was the year of Hurricane Agnes. And our church group was destined to come down and help the people of Elmira and the southern tier. But my dad owned a restaurant, and I worked there, and it was my turn to work, so I had to stay. Now is my time when I believe I can help the people of Elmira. I could help the people of the 23rd District. It's significant that I'm here in Elmira because it is one of the cities that, even when this country was doing very well economically, it did not get out of an economic depression. And now is the time. You have a cluster of coronavirus here. We have to attend to the medical emergency. We have to take care of the people affected by the virus. We have to take care of our hospitals and first responders. We need to address our municipalities to be sure that they're properly funded to see us through this. We have to do something for our schools so that they can stay open and offer choice to parents and children. We also want to be able to help the people who are hungry in this district. 1 in 4 children are hungry. I'm glad to be in Elmira tonight because there's so much for us to discuss. Thank you.
It's always Tom, Zach. Zach, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier in our campaign, a brick like this was thrown through our campaign window, where our young staffers worked and volunteered for our campaign. But just last Friday, a brick like this with the name of my daughter on it and a dead rat with a noose was left on my front step at our home for my wife, who's here tonight, to find. That is unacceptable in our community. It's unacceptable in our country. And Tracy, when you issued a statement after that occurred, you blamed us for that situation. You blamed me for that situation. And here is your statement that you issued on it. To the coward who did that to my family, I will not be intimidated. We will not be intimidated. We know who we are. We know what we stand for. I am a proud American. I am a proud Republican. But my hand is open to anyone to work together like we founded the Problem Solvers Caucus in Washington, D.C., the only bipartisan group of members of Congress that I co-chair on the Republican side with my best friend in Congress, Josh Gottheimer, on the Democratic side, to bring people together. Tracy, you represent the extremism of the Democratic Party. You support Andrew Cuomo's dangerous bail reform that let criminals like the one that likely threw this brick out onto our streets and our communities. I want to unite people and use a brick to build bridges. Join us as we continue this journey representing you.
All right, we're going to have time, of course, to address that and other topics throughout, but we do want to get to these questions that are from our viewers. This first question goes to you, Congressman Reed, and also you, Dr. Metrano. A new report out late last week from Columbia University found that the U.S. government's delayed response to the coronavirus pandemic could be blamed for at least 130,000 avoidable deaths. When speaking of the virus, President Trump continues to say, quote, "It is going to disappear." What do you believe when it comes to the U.S.'s response and handling of the coronavirus pandemic?
Look, I was there when we got briefed in February by all the medical experts. The projections were that we were going to see 2 million to 2.5 million American deaths by now. My wife and I met with the Prime Minister of Japan in January when we watched it going off in China. And those projections were confirmed as to what was coming to the American soil. So I look at it as we took action to save millions of Americans' death. Now I understand 220,000 plus deaths in America is a significant number. And we have a long road ahead to finish and get to the ultimate solution on COVID-19, and that is a vaccine. But we are getting closer to that ultimate solution. I am confident when I tell you tonight that we are very close to a vaccine being approved by some of the greatest minds that America has produced in our American companies that are coming to the close of clinical trials when it comes to those vaccines. Companies such as Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and others that I am confident are going to get us that ultimate solution of a vaccine here very shortly.
Thank you. Tracy, your response to that question.
Thank you. I believe that our leadership in Washington has utterly failed us. And because I'm not running for president, but I'm running for Congress, I'm not going to detail in all the measured ways that this country could have done so much more to save people's lives, to save suffering, to do something for the people in this district, in this state, and in this country. But I will say this, I have not heard Mr. Reed do any serious concern about our failed leadership in Washington. I have not heard Mr. Reed talk constructively about how in the CARES Act he voted for a bill that gave away $500 billion to special interest, commercial banks, and big corporations. And then Congress came back and asked us for that money all over again when the need is with the people who have the virus, with the hospitals, with the first responders. This is where the money should be going, as well as to municipalities and schools, to the unemployed, to the hungry, and to small business. He gives it away to the people who need it the less, because that is the kind of Washington politics we've had 10 years under his leadership in the 23rd District.
Any rebuttal? You have a 30-second rebuttal.
So we passed 3.5 bills in Congress that led to direct assistance here in the district. Let's talk about the $100 million that we brought back to the 23rd Congressional District that went to $12 million to Guthrie, $6.7 million to Arnott Health. These are people I talk to daily during the middle of the crisis to make sure they had the resources to keep us safe. How about the $240 million to the Paycheck Protection Program of the money you say we gave away that went to the district to small businesses here like Billy's Shoes and Hornell here in our community?
I do want to continue with this theme of COVID and economic relief. We'll direct this question to you, Tracy. Parts of the 23rd District are seeing an increase in COVID-19 positive cases right here in the city of Elmira. We are actually in the orange zone, forcing some non-essential businesses and some of our schools to go virtual full-time. A second coronavirus relief bill is stalled in Congress. Do you support a second coronavirus relief bill? And if so, what specifically do you support in that bill?
Yes, sir, I do. And I would have voted for the HEROES Act, unlike my opponent, who voted against it. And let's remember, what would it have funded? Municipalities that fund our law enforcement, our first responders, our fire, emergency, our hospitals, our schools, our unemployed, our small business, indeed. And I have been all over this district many times throughout this virus, and I have seen the devastation that it has caused. There are small businesses all over the 23rd that are out of business permanently. There are people who need help. There are 1 in 4 children who go to bed hungry every night, 1 in 5 adults. The coronavirus has made a situation that Mr. Reed has allowed to languish of poverty and hunger and housing insecurity and the lack of jobs get worse. Not only would I have voted for the HEROES Act, but I would have continued to work across the aisle in every way possible to be sure that it got passed. Mr. Reed wants all kinds of accolades for doing basic constituent services. Maybe that's what he can do when I defeat him this coming month, because he's going to have to understand that what the people of this district want is someone to go to Washington to pass legislation to help the people of this district, not just do your basic job at home to get PPE or some money for the hospitals. It could have come sooner, and it could have been better. And that's what I'll make for the difference.
Okay. Congressman, what is your take on obviously on a corona relief bill? I know you've been working on one.
Well, I appreciate that, Zach, and I appreciate Tracy recognized at least that we did constituent service and delivered that money to our local constituents during this crisis. That is job number 1 of being a congressman, in my opinion. You represent people, you deliver and be there for them 24/7 like we were and are during this crisis. And as to the HEROES Act, that is a bill that funded the Kennedy Center. That is a bill that would have legalized marijuana legislation. That was a bill that dealt with state and local tax deduction that has nothing to do with corona relief in regards to my opponent saying that that is the priority bill that she would have supported. I did vote against it because it wasn't targeted to the relief that we're talking about here. And with the COVID-19 stimulus bill that we are supporting, that we in the Problem Solvers Caucus actually got recognized by the Wall Street Journal. We got recognized by the New York Post editorial board, the Washington Post editorial board for forcing the Treasury Secretary and the Speaker of the House and the White House to get back into the room to do their job. And we have a $1.88 trillion bill now potentially agreed to between the White House and the Speaker of the House because of our efforts in the Problem Solvers Caucus that does prioritize the right priorities for the district. Things like state and local aid for our local governments that will assist folks like Chris Moss and the others here in Chemung County, as well as Jack Wheeler and the Steuben County Legislature, working with Tompkins County on regular calls with their county legislature.
Thank you, Tracy. You have a 30-second rebuttal on that.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, in all of your political advertising about me in 2018 and now in this campaign, you utter complete lies. The notion that the Problem Solvers Caucus is the impetus behind the work that Mnuchin and Pelosi, McConnell, and then a voice from the president every now and then in Mark Meadows is a fantasy. The Problem Solvers Caucus has not gotten one serious piece of legislation through Congress. And in fact, it's just the work that any responsible representative would do, is to work with people across the aisle. I don't know why we need a great big caucus about it.
I'd like to move on now to healthcare. This question comes to us from Terry Rogers of Troopsburg. She asks, the Affordable Care Act has enabled my husband and I to keep our grown children on my husband's insurance. If this is deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, what plan are you offering to protect New Yorkers from a sudden loss of health care during this COVID pandemic? Congressman Reed, you're first.
Well, first and foremost, let's be very clear. What we would replace the law with in Washington, D.C. is something I firmly support. And that is to make sure, one, that the reforms of the Affordable Care Act that I can support, things like making sure that pre-existing condition protections are the law of the land, remain. I am the father. My wife and I are the mother and father of a type 1 diabetic. We are going to make sure that that reform in the 10,000 pages of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act that would be gone, remain. Those are good reforms. When it comes to allowing your children to be carried on your parents' plan up to the age of 26, I support those and will ensure I do my part to make sure that we advocate and make sure those are included going forward with that replacement package. We obviously do not want to go back to the pre-healthcare environment that we were dealing with. What we would have is an opportunity, in my opinion, to make sure that we replace it with a law that doesn't have government-controlled health care at its centerpiece of reform, but rather unleashes the power of patients, the power of physicians, and brings in true transparency and accountability and rewards good quality of care by having reimbursement policies that give the power of the market in a position of healthcare to drive the cost down, so then health insurance and healthcare could then be affordable.
All right, thank you. Tracy.
Mr. Reed's answer is clear as mud. He voted against the Affordable Care Act when it came back up for Congress. And at no time then, and only now suddenly, when he may feel some pressure about it in this campaign, is he talking about substantiating pre-existing conditions. Why didn't you say something at that time, sir, when asked, what do you want to replace it with? Your answer was crickets. Why didn't you say sometime earlier that you would be prepared to support the 26 age? Because we have a terrible case right here in Chemung County, 18 months ago, and it shows the problems that we have when we limit it. There was a young man who fell off of his parents' insurance in Chemung County. He too was a type 1 diabetic. He didn't want to admit to his parents that he was having a hard time making ends meet, so he began to cut his insulin dosage in half. After not hearing from him for a few days, they found him in a coma, and he's since died from it. That should never happen in the United States for insulin that can be made for pennies. You even voted against the bill that would allow the government to negotiate for lower prescription prices with Medicaid and Medicare. I do not believe you can be trusted, Mr. Reed, on this question. You have voted against affordable health care every single time you have been in Congress. And let us not forget, you come from a conflict of interest perspective, having had a family business that was a debt medical collection service.
You have actually 30 seconds, Congressman, to respond.
There you go again. And you can have all the mandates and have your support government control of health care like you want to do, Tracy. That will not provide affordable health care. We need to unleash the power of marketplace to drive these costs down and have transparency and accountability in health care. That's what we have to replace this market with. And what you're talking about is you have a government mandate of health care. You can create all the mandates in the world, but if you don't unleash accountability and transparency, you will not drive costs down, and no one will have access to health care.
All right, moving on to a different topic that's been in the news lately. This is directed to you, not you first, Tracy. Do our police departments need reform? Should we defund them or increase funding?
I'm very glad you've asked that question, Zach, because my opponent has been lying assiduously about me on this point. It must be the inside Washington politics that has corrupted him from start to finish to utter such complete and bold lies about my position. I have never said that I want to defund the police, and I believe that we can also support the social services, which is the cause for many of their calls. I have two stepsons, Vicky's sons, are law enforcement officers in this city, in this county. I want them safe. I would never suggest to defund police here or anyplace else. But nor do I believe it is an either or question of either we fund the police and we have to defund something else, or vice versa. We can and should do both. I'm told by my stepsons that when they go to many calls, it's for medical reasons, mental health, violence issues domestically, abuse and neglect. We need to support those issues, and we need to fund and protect our police. I do believe that the way Mr. Reed has represented me is not only ignominious, it is despicable, and it is an utter lie. And the only thing that I can understand from it is, having been corrupted by being in Washington too long, he gets a playbook and he follows it. And all over this country, it is the same playbook about far left, about socialized medicine, and about defunding the police. Don't put up with it here in the 23rd District.
Congressman, your take. Do our police departments need reform, or should we defund or increase funding?
So it's always Tom, and it's always Tom, Tracy. These are not lies. These are your words off of your Facebook post on June 9th or May 7th, 2020. You said bail reform, that's Andrew Cuomo's dangerous bail reform, letting criminals into our street, is a law moving in the right direction, quote, unquote. You said you support the Justice in Policing Act, and that is on your Facebook on June 11th, 2020. That's from your words. And the Washington Post on June 9th said that would cut funding for our police departments. And you also understand that the Justice in Policing Act, as we had a discussion at the debate in Jamestown, would take away the protections for our law enforcement officers when they have to go and exercise life and death decisions in the streets, keeping us safe, that now they're going to get sued making those decisions, putting them and their families at risk of losing their livelihoods and their incomes from making those decisions. I stand on the side of law enforcement. I support the men and women in law enforcement. I have received the endorsements of the Police Conference of New York. I will stand with them, and I am not afraid of that support for our men and women in law enforcement. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, is a retired New York State trooper, and he served honorably. And the men and women in law enforcement are honorable men and women, and we have their back as they have our back.
All right, thank you. Tracy, you have a 30-second rebuttal. Notice,
first of all, that Mr. Reed likes to play apples and oranges. We're talking about defunding police, and the Justice in Policing Act is relevant, but he talks about bail reform, which, by the way, is a state, not federal issue. Maybe a little conversation about federalism might help. But let's also do a little conversation about what is really in the Justice in Policing Act. It does not defund police. And we looked up that article you kept talking about in Jamestown. It was an editorial from a far-right Republican. Has nothing to do with investigative journalism. Don't talk until I'm finished. Thank you, sir, very much. The Justice in Policing Act.
Shelley, we have to move on to that. You obviously, we're going to keep this topic. We're going to discuss a little bit more about qualified immunity. Brandon Sotomayor asking us, as it stands, only Congress or the Supreme Court has the power to limit or abolish the use of qualified immunity, which would allow law-abiding citizens who feel their constitutional rights were violated by police officers to successfully litigate against them for things like excessive force or destruction of property. Do you support reforming or abolishing qualified immunity? Congressman, you're first.
I support having the law enforcement officers, when they have to make those life and death decisions, having that protection as guaranteed by the law, so that they don't get their livelihood, their source of income, and their family losing that income. That's what we're talking about when we talk about qualified immunity. Now, when we talk about bringing law enforcement, like we did, we brought law enforcement just here a couple weeks ago here in Elmira, in Chemung County, where we had members of the NAACP, where we had members of the minority community sitting together. And that's what we do all the time, Zach. We bring folks together on these issues to talk about this in an honest way. So you can support the men and women of law enforcement, and you can talk about how can we get law enforcement, because the men and women of law enforcement that serve honorably, they want to go after the bad actors. So you can have a conversation about, you know, holding accountable those law enforcement men and women that abuse their position. I support, for example, after an adjudicated case where a law enforcement officer is adjudicated to have violated his oath, violated that honor of wearing that uniform, that now he is on a register that can be researched by a department so that you can't have a bad egg going from one department to another department and get hired from department to department like they do now. That would prevent, hopefully, a lot of these bad actors. I support enhancing funding for law enforcement agencies that get accredited, that do all the best practices. Don't take away their funding, reward them for doing the good work that they do.
All right. Tracy, your thoughts on qualified immunity?
Well, what Mr. Reed is now doing is a shell game, because the Justice and Policing Act does exactly that. It gives enhanced amount of money so there are not unfunded mandates, for example, to wear body cameras. It gives the funding so it can be done by a force that doesn't have the funding to begin with. It also creates the registry that Mr. Reed was just talking about. It also provides Department of Justice oversight when you get certain communities and areas that are beset by police violence that has become its culture rather than its exception. It provides oversight, and one of the reasons we're having problems in this country is because we don't have that kind of oversight. And then I thought I heard some kind of a mushy description, because I too am not for abolishing qualified immunity. I am for reforming it. So first I heard Mr. Reed say he didn't want to abolish it, but maybe he wants to reform it. What we have to be clear about is the Justice and Policing Act does exactly these things, and that is why I support it. I do believe that together as communities, law enforcement, Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, other people, anyone who has been harmed by police brutality that is inappropriate and out of the scope of their work, should be able to come together to work this out. But the kind of advertising that Mr. Reed did, and the way he stands up and will say, I did on this day or that on this day, he's not telling you what it is I said, so we can't talk about it.
Congressman, you have 30 seconds. Rebuttal.
As I indicated, what are in those ads are your words taken from your Facebook post, and when you say things like the dangerous bail reform that Andrew Cuomo supports is a law moving in the right direction that lets dangerous criminals onto the streets, that throw bricks like this at our home and put my daughter's name onto it and puts a dead rat with a noose around it, is something that I'm going to stand up to and say that is extreme, and that is something I'm going to oppose with every fiber of my being.
Okay, we're going to move on to economy now, and we're going to start with you, Tracy. This is a question from Lynn from Prattsburgh. She asks, Steuben County has lost many of its major employers and industries over the past 5 years and has a high percentage of unemployment. What are your plans to regenerate our county and help increase businesses and jobs, of course, throughout the district?
This, I believe, is the reason why I'm running for Congress. All of these issues are important, but the #1 issue is I believe in revitalizing the economy of this entire district. And let me say right at the outset, Mr. Reed has been in office in 10 years. It didn't happen in Elmira, it didn't happen in Jamestown, Olean, Dunkirk. I could go through and read the rest. Ithaca and Corning, God bless, you're in a good place because you've got Corning Inc. and Cornell University and IC and so forth to support those local economies. But the rest of this district has long been in need of help, and Mr. Reed has done nothing to do it. I don't know whether he lacks the imagination, the understanding of what it takes, or the vision, or the effort. So let me tell you very clearly what it takes and what I am for, what I will support, what I will go to Washington and accomplish. You have to have healthy people. That means affordable health care, which he votes against. You have to have educated, well-trained people. I've created curriculum to get people jobs who were proverbially flipping burgers, and when we got them out, they were at work for $60,000, $70,000 a shot. We need to bring the interest rate on student loans down. We're keeping people from college, or when they get out, they're under crippling student debt. He gets too much money from the banking industry to oppose those high interests that both the government and private industry set. But boy, #1, and first of all, why don't we have the internet? Why did children go home in March? They were unable to be educated. They have fallen off the educational map because there's not an internet to connect to. Do not expect a business to come here until it is shovel ready, and that means it needs utilities such as the internet.
Congressman, your take.
So first, I'll remind my opponent, Tracy, that we live in a state that is controlled by one party in Albany that has made us the 50th least competitive state in the nation to do business. And so we are in a backdrop of a Democratic-controlled one-party rule out of Albany that is killing us when it comes to business. Now, what we have done at the federal level, pre-COVID, we had the greatest economic expansion going forward in our country, and it was occurring here in the district, counter to what my opponent is trying to lead you to believe. When we reduce taxes and we cut regulations based on a reasonableness standard, we unleash the power of the American people. My opponent wants to have a government-centered economy. I want to have a people-powered economy, unleashing you and the innovators so that we bring back U.S. manufacturing to American soil. I'm a believer in U.S. manufacturing. I am a believer in our curriculums, in our K through 12 programs that promote the vocational skill sets of America, where I go to the high schools in our districts on a regular basis and I promote those kids. And I still have guidance counselors coming up going, Tom, when you talk about a welder and you say that individual could have a $60,000, $70,000 job, when we see Alstom and we see Nucor hiring people where they say they don't have enough people in our area to promote, and that guidance counselor says, Tom, we don't really, that's nice, you made his day, but we really don't promote those types of careers in our high school here. That's offensive to me, and it needs to change.
Tracy, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, defensive, divisive, Washington politics strikes again. Remember, Mr. Reed likes to create a straw man for his opponent and then attack it. So I'm very grateful that I can express my opinions. Don't let him tell you what I think. I'm available to tell you myself. That 2017 tax cut, I would love to engage you on that, since I know that your very interesting math had $1,600 going out to people who are working in middle class. That's because you added the $69,000 for the 1%.
Congressman, this question is from Paul Franzen, and he asks, during a global pandemic, when more people are working and learning from home than ever, many people in the district still don't have access to functional high-speed internet. As our representative in Congress, what will you do to address this, and when?
So I'm always looking for common ground, Zach, and I think this is something Tracy and I agree on. That expanding broadband in the district, in the state, and in the country, and especially when it comes to 5G, that next generation, we have to get ahead of this and make it a priority. That is also why I celebrate the successes that we've had in broadband infrastructure building here in the district. Right here, for example, in Yates County, your home county, Tracy, we were able to secure the largest grant through USDA of $10 million to put broadband in the ground here in the last 2 years. In Seneca Nation, we had $4.3 million of broadband installed as we speak, is being installed in the district. Working with Corning Incorporated, a great corporate citizen here in our backyard. They are working with us to make investments in broadband in our local community. But as a priority going forward, this is what, when we work together with folks on the other side, and we're working on police reform with individuals on the Democratic side in the Problem Solvers Caucus. I've developed a friendship with a guy, Jim Clyburn. He's third in command in the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. We have worked together now, and his top priority outside of police reform is rural broadband. And we have co-sponsored his legislation, and it's good to have an ally like Jim Clyburn that is going to make rural broadband in America one of his top priorities in the next Congress, and I'm confident working together, we're going to see the results of that investment.
All right, thank you. Tracy, I believe that you have a rebuttal, or am I correct?
Is it for 30 seconds, or what's my time?
30. I'm sorry,
it's not
minute 30.
registered here.
I apologize. You have a minute 30.
Thank you.
A minute 30.
You know, always before the election, Mr. Reed comes up with all kinds of ideas. I remember in 2018, out in Jamestown paper, he was going to help veterans get hearing, dental, and vision. And then after he gets elected, nothing comes of it. It's the same thing that he's doing right now about broadband. You've had 10 years to do it, Mr. Reed. You held up the farm bill that did offer some money, and thank goodness we have it in Yates County, working through the Southern Tier Network. But you've really done very little, and to just claim this one bill that is a drop in the bucket of what is needed for the 23rd District, much less the entire country, is really too little, too late, and I say too inauthentic. What do we need to do? The federal government got us electricity, the federal government got us telephone. We need to work with the state, and I have criticisms and concerns. Had I time, I would explain them about how the state has rolled this out. It shouldn't be going to the ISPs, those grants, it should be going to the counties, and we need those public-private partnerships. But if we could get Congress to do its job and fund a program. We could have the alignment with the state. We could have it then with our local counties who will know best how to spend that money. The program that we now have been working through for Yates County works. But it's going to take an appropriation and a bill from Congress to do what is needed all over this district, and without it, we will not be able to revive the economy of this beautiful place with beautiful people and educational resources. We need the internet, and not in drops and bits and buckets.
Congressman, you have 30-second rebuttal.
And this is where I do find common ground, even with someone who clearly adamantly disagrees with everything I do in my tenure in Congress. And we'll work together. Tracy, I'd love to work with you after this election to continue to see where we can work together to make these investments in the district and make sure that the broadband is secured for our folks, because that's what it takes, ladies and gentlemen. And I do it every day in Washington, D.C. Even with the folks that are adamantly opposed to us, we still have an open hand to work together.
Thank you, Congressman. Tracy, this question directed at you first. Should the ICE detention facilities in the United States be subject to greater congressional oversight?
Yes, I think they should. You know, most of them are being conducted by private investment. And if you trace the private investment and where it's coming from, it is part of the kleptocracy that we have in our federal government right now. Congress has checked out on immigration. Mr. Reid in 2013 could have been a leader in the GOP, in the House. He could have been someone to stand up and say, you know, a Republican Senator Rubio has an idea for reform on immigration. Let's do it. I know politically, you know, we can cause a fuss, but we really should do the right thing for the people of this country. We should do the right thing to avert a crisis that we eventually had. And we should do the right thing by the farmers in this district. It doesn't matter if they're unaffiliated, Democrat or Republican. There's not a farmer I've spoken with who doesn't want legal workers, and they want it through a regular reform that could have passed if Mr. Reid would have done his job in 2013. He's already kind of spent his credit with the people of the 23rd District. We want change. We want real plans. And yes, we will have to have congressional oversight of these detention centers. I do not believe that I am in the United States saying we had a president who put children in cages, and we had a representative who did not stand up to that behavior or many of the other behaviors that have so concerned the people in the United States about our president. So the answer, Zach, is yes.
Thank you, Congressman.
I'm glad Tracy recognizes President Obama put children in cages at our border. Glad you recognize that. The bottom line here is we in the Problem Solvers Caucus are the only group in a bipartisan fashion that have come up with time and time again bipartisan solutions. And you referenced 2013. That bill wasn't going to go anywhere. That bill was not going to get signed into law because I know the politics behind that. They did not want to solve this problem because they wanted to continue to keep it in dispute so that it would drive the political division of America. But the Problem Solvers Caucus actually did something here. One of the proudest moments we had with the bipartisan group we co-chair on the Republican side was last 4th of July. I overheard Democratic operatives say, you know, this is great. We're having fathers wash up on the shores of the Rio Grande with their daughters. And this would be great political theater. We came together as a group of 50 members of Congress and said, that is offensive. We need to get relief flowing to the southern border. And we stood firm over that 4th of July weekend, and we got $12 billion because they were not going to pass in the House of Representatives the bill that had passed the U.S. Senate with 90 votes, and we got $12 billion flowing to that border within 12 hours. And we went down there 2 weeks later as a group of 50 members, and we saw the facilities being improved. We saw the children being taken care of, and we saw the immediate humanitarian crisis being addressed. That's real action that we've delivered for real people suffering.
Tracy, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
I find that what Mr. Reid does is talk about a couple of things that he has done, but he doesn't talk about what could be done. There are still 545 children without their parents. That's unconscionable in any country. It's absolutely unthinkable in the United States that I grew up in, believe in, and want to represent in Congress. So to talk about these little measures that are done maybe as a crisis, maybe we got money down there, but what could have been different? What could be different in the economy of this district?
Congressman, we'll begin with you with this next question. Today, actually, the president continuing to assert that voting by mail is proven to be rife with problems across our nation. However, for the most part, the surge in early voting has been managed smoothly. Do you trust the integrity of our election process?
I do, Zach, and this is maybe an area where I do disagree with the president when it comes to the Postal Service. This is where I voted for that postal bill on the floor of the House to show that I stand with those postal workers and show some independence in regards to where we stand on this issue. The bottom line, that's what we do all the time. I look at, when I'm on the floor of the House making these determinations, I look at the bill, I look at the matter before me as to what is the right vote for the people we represent in the 23rd Congressional District, and what is the right vote for the state and for the country. And it's in that order that we go through that. And we do it by listening to the folks. That's why we do the town halls. That's why we do the constituent service cases we do so much of, is to try to represent people. I say it often, you have to listen to people. I listen to you. You know, we represent 717,000 people. We're not going to agree 100%, but you try to get that information and you come in. So when it comes to the integrity of this election process, I do believe the Postal Service will be able to handle the absentee ballots. I do believe that early voting will continue to proceed, and the election and commissioners and inspectors are doing their job, and we're going to have an amazing turnout come Election Day. So I just trust that system, but always you need to have trust but verify. I'm a big Ronald Reagan, and that is why I was glad to see New York had the absentee ballot where you had to request the ballot before you just mail out massive ballots to everybody.
Thank you. Tracy, do you trust the integrity of our election process?
I do, and I was asked in 2018 by Vice News if I was concerned about a cybersecurity attack since my professional background is in that, and I said no. 3 times they tried to get me to say it. No, I don't, because I understand that we have paper ballots. I believe I've met all the commissioners, and I appreciate the work they do, and I trust them in all 11 counties in this district, Democrat and Republican. There's a larger question that you're asking in this, and that is, what does a congressman do when a president utters irresponsible comments such as this? Nothing. What does a congressman do when a president mocks a disabled person in front of national television? What does a congressman do when our president talks about women in the derogatory way that he does, or completely confuses medical health if we can resurrect the issue of how many people have died and suffered as a result of the lack of leadership in Washington during this pandemic? What do we do when we have a congressman who doesn't stand up to our president's racism or his support for local militias, which is really the greater threat in this area is from militias? So, you know, leadership matters. I have taught for 40 years. Young people look up to see what the people in positions of authority do because they want to grow up and be good people, good citizens. And when you stand back and do nothing, they see that. And that's why we need a change in leadership in this district.
Congressman, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, that's why we do the town halls, and we go into town halls and we stand in front of communities and have an open arm and an open hand. And I've had 4-year-olds on the shoulders of their fathers at those town halls that have been encouraged to spit on me and who have been encouraged to say the most vile things. But we stand there and we say it with an openness and just an amazing way, I think, to say to people, you know what, I hear you, I hear the frustration, but we always have to respect each other as Americans.
All right, this next question will begin with you, Tracy. Should Congress ensure that testing for COVID-19 is free for all who want to be tested? And when a vaccine is approved, should that also be free?
Gosh, yes. That seems like such a simple question. The answer is yes. Do we have concerns that it won't be? Yes, because if you all might remember, in that first CARES Act that was promised, then why are we asking the question again? It should already be covered. It may be that $500 billion that went out to commercial banks, special interest, and corporations that Mr. Reid didn't stand up and say boo about. That suddenly now we're asking, oh, wait, weren't we supposed to be covering all those tests? Aren't we supposed to be covering the medical costs of people with COVID? Aren't we supposed to be addressing the medical and public health issues of this pandemic? I thought they was asked and answered, but apparently not, and I think I can see why. Because when you come out of this corrupt, the Washington politics that seems to have its own logic, that is against the real people in the United States, you get these kind of conundrums where I thought we had asked and answered that question. So you raise now the challenge coming forward. We must have new leadership in Washington to be sure that the people in this district will be given the vaccine or any treatments coming forward equitably, and not according to how Mr. Reed prefers to do business, and that is with the people who give him the most. I'm fascinated with how he keeps talking about how he has a hand out. It's almost like it's a Freudian slip.
Okay. Tom.
Tracy, that's just patently offensive. That's just offensive what you just said there. But I'm not going to take the bait, because I have good news for you. We have already funded much of the vaccine acquisition. We have already pre-positioned the inventory of the vaccine. We have 6 vaccines going through the clinical trials. We have already spent billions of dollars making sure that we have the inventory acquired for all of those 6 vaccines. Now, we know all 6 vaccines will not get approved and be there readily available to us because they won't meet the approval standards that are there. But we made that investment to make sure the ones that are approved, and I'm confident in telling you, at least 2 to 3 of those look like they're going to get that final approval. So those are already pre-positioned. We worked to make sure companies like Corning had a $200 million contract to get the vials to make sure that they are pre-positioned to have the vaccine already in them, and worked with the companies to build the syringes, to manufacture the syringes, which is a logistical problem you would not imagine. If we had hours, I can talk to you about that conversation and what we had to do in order to secure that. So the vaccine is going to be there, and we've made the investments already to be in a position to make that readily available. Now, the military is going to be the source of delivering that vaccine to 300 million plus Americans when it comes, and that is a good thing, because we want to make sure that vaccine gets out there. That means also that the vaccine will be free, and the therapeutics that are being approved will be covered so that everyone has access to that ultimate solution to this crisis of COVID-19.
Tracy, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
You know, the one question that you asked, Zach, is the one that Mr. Reed didn't answer. Because he, in a position of responsibility, being the representative, could have and should have answered it very clearly to alleviate the concerns of the people in this district. How are you going to get the vaccine equitably distributed around the district? It's a simple question. He could have answered it, but he spent 2 minutes talking about everything else.
We're moving on to the next question. Congressman, we'll begin with you. This comes from Helen. Helen is from Corning, and she asked, do you support term limits for Congress, Senate, and the Supreme Court?
Well, just to go back to the question about the vaccine and the distribution of it, we did answer that. I want to be very clear in regards to it, that we are going to have the vaccine readily available and distributed throughout the district, throughout the state, and throughout the country, because we have made those investments now. We have made those investments utilizing the 3.5 bills, not just the CARES Act. Remember, we had multiple investments through 3.5 bills that we approved in Congress to make sure that testing, vaccines, and supplies have been already approved with trillions of dollars of your money that we are now putting into the field to make sure that that is going to be there so that you will have access to the vaccine and to the therapeutics, and they will be free for you in the district. And this was a fight. I will tell you, this was a fight because we have the issue of the urban and rural divide in America that we always have to be sensitive to. And we represent a rural district. And it is very important to me to make sure that that rural and urban voice is overcome so that we can make sure the rural interests are protected. And they are with the distribution of this vaccine. This is a critical point that needs to be stressed so that you know this is going to be here for you as we go forward. With term limits, listen, the term limits are up to you. The term limits, we have an election here in 7 days, and I encourage people, vote, get there, and make sure your voice is heard. And
Thank you, Congressman. Tracy.
Mr. Reed, you still didn't answer the question of how, in which you seem to be missing over and over again. is that there are tens of thousands of people in this district that don't have access to health care. So they literally do not know how they're going to get the vaccine. But you have been missing this point about health care for so long, and I have made it a specific issue throughout the 3 years I have been running. I am not going to go down the road of repeating it, but I do want to make it very clear to you, you are not answering the needs of the people in this district when it comes to health, and you're not able to answer the question of literally how are they going to get it, particularly when they don't have a doctor, they don't have a clinic, they may not be aware of the fact that it is going to be free according to you, and God bless, I hope you're right, because we do have to get it out to the people in this district, and God knows, when I'm in Congress, I will be sure I will let you know how you can get it, because we need to get it out. I do not believe in term limits, but I firmly believe in campaign finance reform. The ability of someone to take the corporate PAC money that Mr. Reed has to spend on lies about his opponents is not what this country is all about. It is not what makes for a democracy. It's not what makes for a healthy society.
Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Bottom line, when it comes to the delivery of the vaccine, it will be there for you, and we will make sure, as we have made constituent service, which you kind of scoff at, Tracy, and say that we're not doing that, but I can tell you that is mission number one, and we'll make sure that it is here for you, and you will have access to it for free. And well, now, and that's why you can't trust Tracy, because she goes back and forth, and it's tough to keep track of where she's coming from on these things. So, and thank you for not interrupting me.
Let's move on to a question from David. David from Elmira asks, we live in one of the highest tax regions in the entire country, yet our roads are crumbling and our schools are underfunded. What measures would you take to ensure that New Yorkers are allowed to keep more of their own money while ensuring that the proper improvements are made to our infrastructure and educational system? Congressman, if you could go first. Oh, Trace. No, Tracy, I apologize. Tracy,
Great.
I have somebody upstairs that's assisting me. It's a lot happening right now.
Okay, very good. That's fine. You know, this has been one of the mysteries of Mr. Reed's 10 years in office. Where's the money going? It's not coming back to us. It's not coming back to us in terms of roads, bridges. We need a lot of work in aligning federal, state, and local help for extreme weather events, and this is an urban-rural issue right across the board. We absolutely need that internet. Remember the internet? People who can't watch us tonight are certainly aware that they don't have the capability to do it, or to teach their children, or to work, or to do telemedicine, or to participate in the 21st century economy, or to expect investment in this district anytime until we can provide the basic foundation for what attracts people to invest. I do not understand for the life of me, after 10 years, why Mr. Reed hasn't brought my federal tax money back, and I bet you're thinking the same thing. Really, I'm almost speechless, which is a little unusual for me, Zach. My point is made. He has not brought anything back. We don't have roads, we don't have bridges, we don't have an infrastructure, we don't have the environmental work that we need. I have seen where whole cottages have gone down into Seneca Lake for an extreme weather event. I watched as my town of Penn Yan was flooded out. It's happening all over the district. Where's Mr. Reed to bring some of that federal money back to us to help?
Congressman.
So this is a great contrast between Tracy and myself. Tracy wants to raise your taxes, send it to Washington, D.C. to have it come back to you. I believe in reducing taxes and keeping your money in your pocket here in the district rather than send it to Washington, D.C., have the bureaucracy take its 20 to 30% off the top and fund that big government. It is a contrast between the two of us, which is clearly a philosophical difference. I believe you better know where to spend your money. That's why I believe reducing taxes is better policy. And you saw the results of that in the economy leading up before COVID-19. When you reduce taxes and you have reasonable regulations, you unleash your power, the power of the people. And that is what caused the economy to boom. That is what caused the economy to grow. Those are real jobs. That means you control your destiny, and you don't have to go begging for crumbs from people in Washington, D.C. to have it sent back to you from Washington. You control your money. And when it comes to infrastructure, I am all in on an infrastructure package. And that is where the Problem Solvers Caucus has put together a package that I think we can get passed. And I hope in the first 6 months of this next administration, working with President Trump, that is the top priority. And we encourage the President to make sure that we do this infrastructure deal first 6 months.
Tracy, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
For 10 years, I have been hearing, and I bet you have been too, it's in the next bill. It's in the next one. Oh, I really support that. I support Meals on Wheels, he said, and he turned around the next day and voted against it. Same thing with children's health care. Voted against that budget after he talked about, yeah, of course, we should support children having health care. But he doesn't do it, and that is part of Mr. Reed's trope. It is part of his Washington politics to sound good but not really do the acts that the people need to get done to really get the help.
We actually are now at the time where we will have our closing remarks. And Tracy, you have 2 minutes and you'll go first. Tracy.
Thank you, and I thank you all again for a time that goes by very quickly. I wish we had more time, frankly, to have these kinds of exchanges. I think we need them, and I think Democrats and Republicans need to talk, as well as the many unaffiliated people. All of us need to work together to solve America's problems. And, you know, my parents were Republicans. And yet they could see when something inappropriate was coming down the street. And so I am telling you folks, it is time to get appropriate, dignified politics back in office. And it is time to be sure that we are fair with all of the citizens of the United States and all of the citizens of this district. Let me just clear up a few quick things. I promise not to raise taxes on working and middle-class people the entire time that I am in Congress. I believe that that tax act that Mr. Reed keeps talking about was a ruse to the American public to have the burden fall on working and middle-class people so that the 1% could take away 69% on average per person. They now own 40% of our nation's wealth. It's not fair, it's not right, it contributes to an income gap that we must start to correct, because you cannot run a good democratic republic when you've got that much wealth concentrated at the top. By the way, we have a $2 trillion deficit as a result of that tax act. That's before we start dealing with COVID relief. The unemployment went down, that's always good, but it didn't mean that there were good jobs here in this district. And that is the main reason I am running. I come from a professional track record of results. I have built the curriculum that got people jobs. I do understand the federal issues. I've either been teaching them or working with them, large corporate context, as a consultant for 40 years of my life now. I want to get into Congress. I want to get results. I want to get things done for the people of this district. And I'm honestly looking forward to that day when I am sworn in and I can get to work with genuine bipartisanship and get something done for the people of the 23rd District. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. 2 minutes.
Tracy, this whole night, a brick with my daughter's name and a dead rat were on my porch, and you didn't say one thing to my wife, who's in this studio. You did not take back your statement where you blamed us for that horrific act. And I will tell you, that is offensive. But ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about Tracy. This isn't about me. This is about standing together up to this extremism. I work day in and day out in Washington, D.C., trying to bring people together. That is why I founded the Problem Solvers Caucus. That is why we are changing Washington, D.C., and people know it. You know us. I live in the house my grandfather built in 1921, same place where that dead rat with a brick like this was laid. I'm not leaving that house. I'm not leaving this position till the job is done. And I will not be intimidated, because America is worth fighting for. America's future is going to be brighter tomorrow. We will get through COVID-19 because we will get through it together. And when we get through it with the ultimate solution of a vaccine, we will ignite the power of America, which isn't in our government, like Tracy supports. The power of America is in you, the people. And I will make sure that your power is unleashed, that you keep your hard-earned dollars, that you use your innovation and your entrepreneurship and that hard-working American spirit that has made us great to lead the world to a better place and provide better lives for not only Americans, but the world. And America's days are greater, and they're yet to come. So stand with us, join us in this fight.
Thank you, and thank you both for joining us for this 23rd Congressional debate, and thank you for joining us tonight. There are only 7 days until the general election, and early voting has started. So we thank you. Don't forget to vote, and have a wonderful night from your local election headquarters.